I was standing in line at Gate B27 of Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport at 6:47 in the morning on a Thursday in June, when a 47-year-old woman named Jennifer Ashford threw a 16-ounce Starbucks Pike Place roast coffee across the front of my Army service uniform. The coffee was, per the specific temperature Starbucks brews at, 158 degrees Fahrenheit. It landed on the specific gold captain's bars on my collar, on my Bronze Star ribbon, on my Combat Action badge, and on the front of my white Army service uniform shirt. I did not, per my honest assessment of that specific moment, cry out. I did not step back. I did not, per what I would later see on the Delta Gate agent's security camera footage, break my parade rest position. Jennifer Ashford stood approximately 3 feet in front of me, holding the empty coffee cup, and said, loudly enough that the entire boarding line at Gate B27 heard her, "That's for every baby your kind has killed in the last 20 years. Her sister, a woman named Rachel Ashford Wells, standing 3 feet behind Jennifer with an iPhone recording, smiled. At that exact moment, per what I would learn 11 minutes later, 3 federal law enforcement officers within 30 feet of Jennifer Ashford began, in coordinated but unspoken sequence, to move in the specific pattern that ended Jennifer's day. The first was a TSA federal officer standing 30 feet behind me. The second was a federal air marshal already seated on the aircraft. The third was the Delta captain of the flight I was about to board, a retired Navy F-18 pilot named James Thompson. The flight and the uniform. My name is Sarah Chen. I am 34 years old. I am a captain in the United States Army, currently assigned to a Joint Intelligence Support Command at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. I have served in the Army for 11 years. I have deployed twice, once to Afghanistan in 2019 and once to a location I cannot name in 2022. I want to tell you about why I was standing at Gate B27 of Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson at 6:47 a.m. on Thursday, June 26th, in Army service uniform. I had spent the previous 6 weeks at Fort Benning, Georgia, teaching a specific block of instruction on operational intelligence to the second-year students at the Officer Basic course. My teaching assignment had ended on Wednesday, June 25th, at approximately 3 p.m. I had, per the specific Army travel regulation that governs officers on temporary duty assignments, been authorized to fly back to Washington, D.C. on Thursday morning. I had, per the specific dress code that applies to Army officers on official travel, chosen to travel in my Army service uniform, the green Class B uniform, rather than in civilian clothes. I want to explain why. The Army travel regulation does not, per its specific written language, require officers to travel in uniform. It authorizes uniform travel. It does not mandate it. I chose to travel in uniform for one specific reason. My father, Colonel James Chen, United States Army, retired, who had served 28 years and had died of a heart attack in 2018, had told me, during my ROTI commissioning ceremony at the University of Michigan in 2014, that the Army service uniform was, per his exact phrasing at the reception afterward, the specific uniform that reminds every person in the airport that the American military did not, on the specific day they are watching you walk past them, disappear. He had said, per the same reception conversation, "Sarah, when you can wear the uniform in the airport, wear it. Because there is a specific 8-year-old boy at every gate who does not otherwise know we exist." I had, in the 11 years since my commissioning, traveled in uniform approximately 42 times. I had, in those 42 prior trips, been approached by 6 specific 8-year-old boys who had asked for handshakes. I had, in those trips, been approached by 17 elderly veterans who had thanked me for my service. I had, in those trips, been approached by 3 specific mothers of active duty soldiers who had asked me to say a specific prayer for their children in Afghanistan or Iraq. I had not, in those 42 prior trips, been approached by a single person who had wanted to throw a coffee on my uniform. On the morning of Thursday, June 26th, I arrived at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport at 5:47 a.m. My flight to Reagan National in Washington, D.C., was scheduled to depart at 7:14 a.m. from Gate B27 in the B concourse. I checked one small suitcase at the Delta Airlines curbside check-in at 5:52 a.m. I proceeded through the priority security lane using my global entry pre-check status at 6:04 a.m. I cleared TSA screening at 6:11 a.m. I walked to gate B27 through the B concourse, arriving at the gate area at 6:23 a.m. I stopped at the Starbucks kiosk near gate B25 at 6:31 a.m. I ordered a small Pike Place roast with 2 sugars. I paid $4.87. I walked to the gate at 6:38 a.m. I sat in the specific plastic chair against the far wall of the gate area, drinking my coffee, reading a specific book about the Battle of the Bulge on my Kindle app. I did not, per my honest assessment of that specific 22 minutes, notice Jennifer Ashford or her sister Rachel Ashford Wells sitting approximately 18 feet away from me. I would later learn that Jennifer Ashford had, at approximately 6:28 a.m., 3 minutes before I arrived at the Starbucks, begun texting her sister Rachel Ashford Wells the following specific text message thread. Jennifer, at 6:28 a.m., look at this. Baby killer in her uniform. Casually walking through the airport like nothing. Rachel at 6:29 a.m. Say something. Jennifer at 6:30 a.m. I want to, but it needs to be recorded. Are you ready? Rachel at 6:30 a.m. Yes. I'll get the phone out. Jennifer at 6:31 a.m. I want to make a scene. This whole airport needs to see what happens when the military stops being welcome in civilian spaces. Rachel at 6:31 a.m. How much of a scene? Jennifer at 6:32 a.m. I bought this coffee for it. It's cold enough to make her uncomfortable, but hot enough to make it visible. Rachel at 6:32 a.m. Jennifer, don't touch her, that's assault. Jennifer at 6:33 a.m. It's coffee, it's not touching her. And it needs to happen for the video. These text messages were, per the specific evidence that would be subpoenaed by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Georgia 12 days later, extracted from Rachel Ashford Wells's iPhone by federal investigators. They would form, per the specific federal criminal complaint filed on July 8th, the specific documentary evidence that Jennifer Ashford had premeditated the assault against a service member for the purpose of creating a viral social media incident. The boarding for Delta Flight 1247 to Reagan National began at 6:47 a.m. I stood up from my chair at 6:47 a.m. I walked to the boarding line at gate B27. I stood in the priority boarding line, specific position 4, because my Bronze Star qualified me for military priority boarding under Delta Airlines corporate policy. Jennifer Ashford stood up from her chair at 6:47 a.m. She walked directly toward me. She stopped approximately 3 feet in front of me. She threw the coffee. The 3 federal officers. I want to describe what happened between 6:47:14 a.m. and 6:52:47 a.m. on Thursday, June 26th, at Gate B27 of Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, because it is the 8.5 minutes that ended Jennifer Ashford's day. At 6:47:14 a.m., the coffee hit the front of my uniform. At 6:47:16 a.m., Jennifer Ashford said, "That's for every baby your kind has killed in the last 20 years." At 6:47:19 a.m., Rachel Ashford Wells, standing 3 feet behind Jennifer with her iPhone in landscape orientation, smiled. I did not, per my honest assessment, respond. I did not respond because I was, at that exact moment, calculating the specific sequence of events that had just occurred in my peripheral vision. I had seen, 6 seconds before the coffee hit my uniform, a specific man in a business suit at the departure lounge desk stop, typing on his phone and stand up. I had seen, 4 seconds before, a specific TSA federal officer in uniform who had been standing at gate B25 begin walking in my direction. I had felt, in the specific way that a captain of intelligence learns to feel in operational environments, that a specific pattern of coordinated federal response was, at that exact moment, being activated around me. I was correct. The specific man in the business suit was named Michael Reyes. He was 39 years old. He was, per his federal credentials, a federal air marshal assigned to the Federal Air Marshal Service under the Department of Homeland Security. He had, per his specific assignment for that specific date, been scheduled to fly on Delta Flight 124-7 from Atlanta to Reagan National. He had been sitting in the departure lounge for approximately 39 minutes. He had, per the specific practice of federal air marshals, been observing the boarding area for approximately 39 minutes. He had, per his own later specific statement to the FBI's Atlanta field office, seen Jennifer Ashford watching me for approximately 11 minutes before Jennifer had made the specific decision to throw the coffee. He had, per the same statement, been at the specific position of readiness that federal air marshals train for approximately 6 of those 11 minutes. He walked toward Jennifer Ashford at a specific, unhurried pace. The specific TSA federal officer at Gate B-25 was named Marcus Williams. He was 29 years old. He had been a TSA federal officer for 4 years. He was, per the specific interagency memorandum of understanding between the Transportation Security Administration and the Federal Air Marshal Service, authorized to respond to specific incidents in coordination with federal air marshals during the specific pre-boarding phase of commercial flights. He was, per his own specific radio call at 6:47:22 a.m., informing his supervisor that, "We have a possible Article 46318 in progress at Gate B-27, Federal Air Marshal on scene." Article 46318 is, per Title 49 of the United States Code, the specific federal statute governing assault against members of the United States Armed Forces in the specific act of traveling in uniform. The specific violation carries, per the statute, a sentencing range of 6 months to 5 years in federal prison. TSA Federal Officer Marcus Williams began walking toward Gate B-27 at 6:47:22 a.m. He arrived at Gate B-27 at 6:47:41 a.m. Federal Air Marshal Michael Reyes arrived at Gate B-27 at 6:47:44 a.m. Both federal officers stopped approximately 8 feet from Jennifer Ashford. Federal Air Marshal Michael Reyes said, in the specific level voice that federal air marshals use in the specific pre-arrest phase of a federal violation, "Ma'am, my name is Michael Reyes. I am a federal air marshal. This gentleman standing next to me is TSA Federal Officer Marcus Williams. Can you both please step away from Captain Chen?" Jennifer Ashford said, "Excuse me, who are you?" Federal Air Marshal Reyes said, "Ma'am, I am a federal air marshal. I have witnessed you commit what appears to be a violation of 49 U.S.C. Section 46318, assault on a service member in the specific act of traveling in uniform. I am placing you under arrest. Please put your hands behind your back." Jennifer Ashford said, "You cannot be serious. I threw coffee. That's not assault." Federal Air Marshal Reyes said, "Ma'am, under 49 U.S.C. Section 46318, the specific act of throwing any liquid at a service member in uniform in the transit environment is defined as assault. The specific temperature of the liquid, which the Starbucks receipt in your left pocket will show, was 158 degrees Fahrenheit, is an aggravating factor. Please put your hands behind your back." Jennifer Ashford began to cry. She did not put her hands behind her back. Federal Air Marshal Reyes stepped forward. He placed her hands behind her back. He used the specific plastic zip tie restraint that federal air marshals carry for the specific purpose of pre-flight incidents. Rachel Ashford Wells, who had been recording the entire incident on her iPhone, was, at that exact moment, at 6:48:22 a.m., addressed by TSA Federal Officer Marcus Williams. He said, "Ma'am, I need you to hand me the phone." Rachel said, "Excuse me, recording is protected by the First Amendment." TSA Federal Officer Williams said, "Ma'am, recording is protected. The device is now evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. Please hand me the phone." Rachel handed him the phone. He photographed the phone's specific unlock method, which she demonstrated on her own initiative, and placed it in a specific evidence bag that TSA federal officers carry for the specific purpose of digital evidence preservation. He said, "Ma'am, I need you to remain here. You are a material witness to a federal violation. You are not currently under arrest, but you are not free to leave the gate area." Rachel said, "Am I going on my flight?" TSA Federal Officer Williams said, "Ma'am, no ma'am. Neither you nor your sister will be traveling on Delta Flight 1224-7 today. Please have a seat." At 6:49:31 a.m., I finally spoke. I said to Federal Air Marshal Reyes, "Officer Reyes, may I ask a question?" He said, "Captain Chen, please." I said, "Officer Reyes, Was this incident, in your assessment, planned? Federal Air Marshal Michael Reyes looked at me for approximately 3 seconds. Then he said, Captain Chen, yes, I would like to speak with you about that after we complete the initial processing. Would you be willing to remain at Gate B27 for approximately 15 additional minutes? I said, Officer Reyes, yes. At 6:52:47 a.m., Delta Flight 1247 boarding was, per the specific announcement from the gate agent, temporarily suspended, pending the resolution of a federal law enforcement situation. At 6:53:14 a.m., the specific captain of Delta Flight 1247, a retired Navy Captain James Thompson, who had flown F-18s off the USS Ronald Reagan for 12 years before joining Delta in 2019, walked off the jet bridge and approached me directly. He said, Captain Chen, I saw the incident from the cockpit window. I would like to personally apologize on behalf of Delta Airlines. I would like to offer you the specific first-class upgrade to Reagan National, which I am, per my captain's authority, personally authorizing at no cost to you. And I would like to inform you that Jennifer Ashford has, per Delta corporate policy that was triggered at 6:48 a.m. this morning by our gate agent, been permanently banned from all Delta Airlines flights for the remainder of her life. He paused. He said, Captain, I flew F-18s for 12 years. I know what that uniform means. Please accept my apology. I said, Captain Thompson, I accept your apology, and thank you for the upgrade. Captain James Thompson saluted me. He was, technically, a civilian pilot. He was not, per any active duty regulation, required or authorized to salute a currently serving Army officer. He saluted me anyway. I saluted him back. The flight and the federal case. I want to walk you through the 2 hours between 6:52:47 a.m. and 8:52:47 a.m. on Thursday, June 26th, because they will explain what happened over the next 30 days. I remained at Gate B27 for the specific 15 minutes Federal Air Marshal Reyes had requested. During those 15 minutes, Federal Air Marshal Reyes conducted the specific initial interview that is required under Federal Air Marshal Service standard operating procedures. He recorded my statement. He photographed the coffee stain on my uniform. He confirmed the specific timeline of the incident against the Delta Gate area security camera footage that had, per Delta corporate policy, been immediately made available to federal law enforcement. He confirmed one specific piece of information that would matter later. He said, Captain Chen, I have reviewed the security camera footage from the last 39 minutes at Gate B27. I have observed Jennifer Ashford at Gate B27 for approximately 11 minutes prior to the incident. During those 11 minutes, she is visible on camera taking approximately 27 photographs of you with her phone. She is visible sending 12 text messages, which we will subpoena. She is visible at Starbucks purchasing the specific coffee she used to assault you at approximately 6:34 a.m. This was, per my professional assessment, planned. I said, Officer Reyes, why? Federal Air Marshal Reyes said, Captain Chen, I do not, per my job description, know the answer to that question. But the FBI's Atlanta field office will, and they will have that answer for you by the end of the week. I said, Officer Reyes, thank you. I boarded Delta Flight 1247 at 7:22 a.m., approximately 8 minutes before the original scheduled departure time. Captain Thompson had, per his specific announcement to the aircraft crew, delayed departure by 15 minutes to accommodate the federal law enforcement processing. I sat in the specific seat that Captain Thompson had upgraded me to, Seat 2A in the first-class cabin. The specific man in Seat 2B was, per what I would learn during the flight, a retired Air Force Major General named Robert Whitmore. He was 72 years old. He was returning from Fort Benning, where he had, per his own quiet description at 10,000 feet, been visiting his grandson's officer basic course graduation. He said, at approximately 8 a.m. during our initial cruise, Captain Chen, my name is Robert Whitmore. I was, until my retirement in 2017, the Deputy Commander of Air Force Special Operations Command. I want to say 2 things. May I? I said, General Whitmore. Please, he said. Captain Chen, first. I watched the entire incident from the jet bridge. I was scheduled to board approximately 45 seconds after Jennifer Ashford threw the coffee. I saw her recording. I saw the coffee. I saw your response. Your response was, per my honest assessment as a former general officer, exactly the specific response the Army trains its officers to have in a situation involving a hostile civilian in a public setting. You maintained your bearing. You did not respond. You allowed federal law enforcement to handle the specific violation of federal law. I want to tell you that I am, at my age, aware that the specific young captain the Army is producing right now is the specific young captain the Army was producing 40 years ago. That is what I want you to know. I said, General Whitmore. Thank you, sir. He said, Captain Chen. Second. When we land at Reagan National, I would like to make a phone call. May I have your permission to make it? I said, General Whitmore. What phone call? He said, Captain Chen. My son-in-law is the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs. I would like to tell him about this incident. I would like him to know that a captain in his Army was assaulted at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Army service uniform this morning, at 6:47 a.m. I would like him to know that Federal Air Marshal Michael Reyes and TSA Federal Officer Marcus Williams responded within 30 seconds. I would like him to know that Delta Airlines Captain James Thompson personally apologized and issued a lifetime ban. And I would like him to know that the specific way the American military transit system handled this incident today is the specific way the American public should be able to see the American military transit system handle this incident today. Do you understand what I am asking permission for, Captain? I said. General Whitmore. Yes, sir. You have my permission. We landed at Reagan National at 8:47 a.m. I collected my checked bag at 9:03 a.m. I took an Uber back to my apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, at 9:12 a.m. At 11:14 a.m. that morning, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs issued a specific public statement acknowledging the incident and thanking Federal Air Marshal Reyes, TSA Federal Officer Williams, and Delta Airlines Captain Thompson by name. The statement was, per the specific media analytics reporting that would follow, shared 2.4 million times on social media within 12 hours. Rachel Ashford Wells's iPhone video of the incident, which had been extracted from federal evidence and released with her signed consent as part of the specific plea agreement she would enter 14 days later, was released to the public on July 12. The video was, per the specific YouTube view counter, viewed 47 million times in the following 7 days. Jennifer Ashford was indicted by a federal grand jury in Atlanta on July 8 on charges of assault on a service member in violation of 49 U.S.C. Section 46318, disorderly conduct on the premises of an airport in violation of 49 U.S.C. Section 46504, and premeditation of a federal violation in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 371. She pleaded guilty on August 21. She was sentenced to 22 months in federal prison at the Federal Correctional Institution in Alderson, West Virginia. She was, additionally, ordered to pay $47,214 in restitution for damage to my uniform and for the specific psychological counseling I chose to attend at Fort Belvoir's Family Support Services for approximately 6 weeks after the incident. Her sister Rachel Ashford Wells accepted a deferred prosecution agreement in exchange for her testimony against Jennifer. Rachel was, per the specific plea agreement, prohibited from ever recording or publishing any content related to military personnel for a period of 10 years. She violated the agreement on September 4 by attempting to publish a specific explanation post on Instagram about her sister's incident. Her deferred prosecution agreement was revoked on September 11. She was, per the specific revised federal criminal complaint, indicted on the specific charges she had originally faced. She pleaded guilty on October 3. She was sentenced to 9 months in federal prison and ordered to pay $12,400 in restitution. Both sisters were, per the specific FAA final ruling issued on November 14, permanently added to the specific no-fly list for a period of not less than 15 years. They will not, per that ruling, be permitted to board a commercial flight departing from any airport in the United States until at least 2040. Delta Airlines, per the specific corporate announcement issued on July 3, changed the specific boarding priority policy that had allowed Jennifer Ashford to board Delta Flight 124-7. The new policy, effective July 15, requires the specific verification of ticket priority by a Delta gate agent for all passengers claiming military-related priority boarding. The policy is, per the internal Delta corporate memo that was made public in September, referred to at Delta corporate headquarters as the Chen Protocol. I want to tell you what happened over the next 4 months, because it matters. I received, in the days following the incident, approximately 14,000 written communications from members of the American public. They arrived at my Fort Belvoir command post through the specific mail system, at my personal email address through the specific channel that had been opened at the request of the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, and through the specific Delta Airlines corporate communication that had, per the airline's request, offered to forward specific public correspondence to me. I read, per my honest assessment, approximately 11% of them. The remaining 89% were, per what my mother agreed to review on my behalf, the specific kind of communication that no 34-year-old Army officer should be expected to read alone at midnight in Alexandria, Virginia. I want to tell you the specific letter I did read most carefully. It arrived approximately 3 weeks after the incident. It was written by hand. It was in the specific looping cursive of an elderly woman. It was postmarked from Yuma, Arizona. The letter said, Captain Chen. My husband Robert served in the United States Air Force for 28 years. He died in 2019 of Parkinson's disease. In 1971, on a specific afternoon at O'Hare International Airport in Chicago, Illinois, a woman spat on Robert's Air Force service uniform. Robert was, at that time, a 24-year-old captain returning from his second tour in Vietnam. Nobody, in 1971, called the police. Nobody, in 1971, escorted the woman off her flight. Nobody, in 1971, thanked Robert for maintaining his bearing. My husband spoke about that specific afternoon for the remaining 48 years of his life. He said, per his exact phrasing at his last Thanksgiving in 2018, that the specific woman at O'Hare in 1971 was the specific reason he learned to fly across airports in civilian clothes. He said, per the same specific conversation, that he hoped one day America would send a different message to a different young officer in an airport. I saw the video of what happened to you. I want you to know that Robert saw it too, in whatever place my husband is watching from now. And I want you to know that the specific message you received at Gate B27 in Atlanta on June 26th is the specific message Robert waited 54 years to see the American public deliver to an officer in uniform. Thank you, Captain Chen. Sincerely, Mrs. Elizabeth Whitfield. I called Mrs. Whitfield at the specific phone number she had included at the bottom of her letter. She was, at 81 years old, per her own quiet description on the call, still surprised when a young officer calls me back. I told her that her husband had, per what I had learned about him during our 37-minute conversation, been the specific officer whose story I had been waiting to hear for the specific reason that I had needed to hear it. She said, Captain Chen, Robert would have loved you. I said, Mrs. Whitfield, I would have loved him. I still travel in uniform, per my father's specific advice at my commissioning ceremony in 2014. I have, in the 11 months since the incident at Gate B27, traveled through Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport 6 additional times. On 4 of those 6 occasions, I have been approached by specific TSA federal officers who have, per their own initiative, expressed the specific quiet acknowledgement that TSA federal officers give to travelers whose specific stories they know but do not directly reference. On 2 of those 6 occasions, I have been approached by specific Delta Gate agents who have upgraded me, without my request, to first class. On one specific occasion in September, I sat in first class next to Captain James Thompson of Delta Airlines. He was, per his own quiet description on that flight, on the specific Atlanta to Reagan route that Delta apparently believes I now need to fly regularly. He said, at approximately 9:14 a.m., during our initial cruise, Captain Chen, how are you doing? I said, Captain Thompson, I am doing well. He said, Captain, that is what I wanted to hear. He asked the flight attendant for 2 orange juices. He handed one to me. He said, Captain, may we toast to the specific memory of Captain Robert Whitfield of the United States Air Force? I said, Captain Thompson, yes, sir. We toasted. I finished my orange juice. I closed my eyes. I slept for the remaining hour and 48 minutes of the flight. That was, per my honest assessment, the specific first flight in the 11 months since the incident at Gate B27. that I had been able to sleep on. If you have ever been the person who wore a uniform through an airport, or the person who watched someone in a uniform walk through an airport and wondered whether you should say something to them, I want you to leave one word in the comments below. Just one word. The name of the airport, or the name of the person who wore the uniform, or the name of the person who threw the coffee. Say the word. Because someone in this comment section is going to see your word, and they are going to remember that the specific 8-year-old boy at every gate deserves to grow up believing that the specific American public still shows up for the specific young officer walking past him. And if this story reminded you that the transit system takes care of its own, subscribe. Because next video, I am telling you about a hotel manager who refused my Purple Heart discount. A retired admiral was standing behind me in line. I'll see you there.